Okay, let's go for a fifth example. Again, I think I'm going to start off tackling this by dealing with some of the negative exponents. If that gets really messy, we might check out another way, but that's always a nice safe way to get started on things. So 4t to the 7 times 1 over u cubed is raised to the negative 1/2. And then I'm going to deal with that negative 1/2 power as well and say, okay, well, I can rewrite that as 1 over all of that to the positive 1/2. And I'm going to clean up the inside the parentheses a little. I'm going to say when I multiply 4t to the 7 times 1 over u cubed, I get 4t to the 7 over u cubed, and that's all still divided by tu. Make sure you pay attention to where the big fraction bar is. That tu is on its own in the bottom. So when I go next to multiply by the reciprocal, it's the reciprocal of tu over 1, not the reciprocal of u cubed over tu. That can actually be pretty easy to mess up if you're not being careful about how you write these things. Okay, so that, when I multiply by the reciprocal, means I have 4t to the 7 over u cubed times 1 over tu, all raised to the 1/2 power. Okay, so multiplying, and let's see, I'm going to do a little canceling while I'm at it. I have 7 t's sitting on the top and 1 sitting on the bottom, so that'll leave 6 t's on the top. So I have 1 over 4t to the 6, and then on the bottom I have a u cubed times u, which is a u to the 4th, raised to the 1/2 power. Okay, so I still have some fractions in fractions, and I would like to flip and multiply, and you can do that here, but I think it looks a little questionable, so I'm going to show you the why you can do it here. Let's go ahead and say if you have a product or quotient raised to a power, you can just raise each of the pieces to a power. So we're going to raise 4 to the 1/2. That's the same as square root of 4, which is 2. We're going to raise t to the 6 to the 1/2. Remember, when you have a power and you raise it to another power, you multiply. So that's the same as t to the 6 times 1/2, which is t to the 3rd. On the bottom, we have u to the 4th to the 1/2, which is the same as u to the 4 times 1/2, u squared. So now we go back to our multiply by the reciprocal, and we have u squared over 2t cubed times 1, and we certainly don't need to write in that 1, so I'm just going to get rid of it, and that is our answer. And I don't think that was anything too terrible. I will show you another order, just to give you some options. We could start right off by running that negative 1/2 power through to everything in the parentheses. So we'd have 4 to the negative 1/2 times t to the 7 to the negative 1/2, which you multiply power, so that's a negative 7/2. And then you'd have u to the negative 3 times negative 1/2, so that's positive 3/2, over t to the negative 1/2, u to the negative 1/2. I think I'm going to like my first way better, but we'll see. Okay, so this is the same as 1 over 4 to the 1/2 times 1 over t to the 7/2 times u to the 3/2, and I'm going to put that over 1, so I'm lining those up right in my mind, over 1 over t to the 1/2 times 1 over u to the 1/2. Okay, so multiplying straight across, I'm going to go ahead and shove one extra thing in this step. 4 to the 1/2 is 2, so I have in the bottom of the numerator 2 times t to the 7/2, and on the top I have a u to the 3/2. And then in the denominator I have 1 over t to the 1/2, u to the 1/2. Okay, so now I can flip and multiply. I get u to the 3/2 over 2t to the 7/2 times t to the 1/2 u to the 1/2 over 1. Okay, so let's see what we can do. On the top, we can say that u to the 3/2 times u to the 1/2, we would add powers, so that's u to the 4/2, otherwise known as u squared. The t's, I can say t to the 1/2 minus t to the 7/2 is t to the negative 6/2, which is t to the negative 3. And then all that would be left if I've done that is the 2. That t thing can be a little tricky for people, but if you use the subtraction rule, what you end up with is in the numerator. And then we can move it to the denominator by saying, okay, t cubed is, t to the negative 3 is 1 over t cubed. So the top is really u squared over t cubed divided by 2, which is the same as u squared over t cubed times 1/2, so that 2 just ends up right there. So a couple of options. Again, you get all this flexibility just because everything's multiplication, division, or exponents, which are just more multiplication. Okay, thanks for watching.